So Lana McAra is an award-winning, international best-selling author and ghostwriter of more than 40 titles with 1 million books sold. I happen to know that some of them were actually sold in 4-volume sets, and she's amazing. An author via traditional publishing with Barber Publishing and Wine Press Publishing for 25 years. She's been editing and ghostwriting for more than 20 years, working for Wine Press Publishing, as well as my company, Author One Stop, and with plenty of individual clients. She's the winner of the National Christie Award for Reaping the Whirlwind in 2001, and her historical cozy mystery series, Colorado, sold more than 250,000 copies. Can you imagine what it'll be like for you to have a book that's selling 250,000 copies? This is just very exciting to me. Her titles have appeared around the world in bookstores and libraries, in regular print, large print editions, and audiobooks. She's been teaching and coaching novel writing for 20 years. And I just want to speak very briefly from personal experience. Lana and I have been working together for 20 years. I pitch books to literary agents and publishers, and she either edits or ghostwrites or book coaches people so that when I'm pitching, that project is stellar. So just in the last month, I swear to you, Lana finished a project with one of my clients at Author One Stop, and within 3 days of me pitching it, a publisher offered a book deal for that fiction, for that book. So knowing Lana and what she has to offer, you are learning from the absolute best of the best. Absolutely. And so I have one announcement to make, and then Lana, I'm going to turn the program over to you, is that at the end, we'll be doing a drawing at the end of this masterclass. And someone in the Zoom room will get access to a call with Lana to discuss your novel project, but you must be present in order to win. So Lana, let's jump right in. And can you just talk a little bit about your background within publishing?
Oh, thank you, Randy. And thank you for that wonderful introduction as well. That was great. When I hear all that stuff, sometimes I just can't even believe it's actually me. I feel like I'm like, wow, okay, I did all that. So I'm not a natural. And I wanted to start off with that. I was an education major, so I'm a teacher, and I was an English minor, and I did teach high school English for a short time, about a year. A year did it for me, but I was not a writer. I love grammar, punctuation. I even love diagramming sentences. Everybody loves that, right?
I remember those days, yes.
But I didn't like to write. I hated college papers. I did well on them, but I didn't like writing them. They were so boring to me. And so then I got married right out of college, and I started having baby number 1, baby number 2, baby number 3. I was pregnant with my 3rd child. I went on to have 7 children. I love children. That's my other love in my life. My first love, and then my second love is writing. But I was so bored. I had just gotten out of college. There was all this mental stimulation, all this action, and now I'm changing diapers, I'm washing laundry, cooking meals. It was boring, boring, boring. And one day my mother-in-law came over with this big stack of women's magazines. And I don't know where she got them from, but it was like, a sizable stack of women's magazines. And I was, sitting there one day, and I just opened one up, and there was this ad. You've probably seen it. You can write children's books. After that, I saw that ad all over the place. I mean, they were really heavy in the marketing part. And I just was so intrigued, and then I picked up another magazine. You can write children's books. I'm like, what? I don't even like to write, but it intrigued me. And they had a little coupon. You mailed it in, took a little test to see if you had the aptitude or not. And I took the test and came back like, you are so, capable of this. You could really do well. And so I think the cost of the course was like $300. It was not a lot. I mean, we're talking about the early 1980s. But we were dirt poor. You know, we had 2 kids there, one on the way. My husband was making $7,000 a year. I mean, even in those days, it was nothing, right? It was so small. And I felt like I was going to him, asking him to buy me a Cadillac with this $300 course, you know. Somehow we did it. I took the course, and as soon as I got into the creative space with writing, I was immediately addicted. I was so hooked, because what I didn't realize was that the college paper thing isn't about creativity. It's about reporting, you know, what other people have done or insights you've had. It's a totally different thing. And to this day, I don't edit college papers. I love the creative space, or, you know, self-help and that kind of thing. So I finished the course. I wrote the novel that I started, and I never did really have an interest in writing children's books. That's completely different skill, but it got me started with my novel. I had my novel idea, but I didn't get published for 14 years. Not a single word published for 14 years. I was sending my book off to get, you know, I was sending submissions, and I'm checking right now. Uh-oh. I just have
we just lost your face there, Lana.
Yeah, my camera fell down. I need to setting here because I'm not, it's not doing the right thing for me. Okay. I want the recording to be a good recording, so that's why.
Yeah. Can you pull the screen down a little bit? Because yeah, there you go. Better. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
So I wrote my book over 5 times. I rewrote it 5 times in the next 14 years. I added characters, I changed things up, and then after the 3rd writing, I set it back in the past, because I started to think, well, maybe historicals are easier to sell because not as many people are writing them, and so forth. And so I started doing all the research, changed the storyline to go in the past, but it still took me another 2 times. And eventually it clicked. It just clicked. And Barber Publishing picked it up. And from that point on, they wanted my material. I was a reader's favorite that year. And some years I would write 3 books in a year for them. So that was my start. And so I always tell people that I'm working with or coaching or even on a phone call, don't lose heart. If you have it inside of you to do this, there's a reason for it. You're not making it up. Nobody would make this up. It is not an easy game to play. So, you know, keep going, learn, get around people who are successful, find out how they're doing things. And then the other piece of it was the year before my book got accepted, I went through a major personal transformation myself. There was some personal development in the process for me before I was able to get published, because my writing showed how locked down I was emotionally. I was in protection mode. I was very abused as a child. And so that was affecting my ability to bring out the emotion of the characters, the connection with the reader, even bringing out the message of the story, the theme, was muted because I was muted. You know, that was part of my journey. So my first book came out in 1996, and in 2000, 4 years later, I won a national award for my fiction. It seemed like my career just skyrocketed at that point. I'd like to joke around and say it took me, it took me 18 years to become an instant success. 18 years of very hard work. So yeah, that was how I got started. When I won the award for Reaping the Whirlwind, people started to just bombard me with requests for help. So many people came to me, and truth be told, Barber Publishing was sending me people too, because my first student was actually a person who had put in a book to Barber. They liked it, but it wasn't up to quality, and they asked her to call me and ask me for help. And because she did, her name was Diane Hunt, I created this course, and I started to share with her some charts and diagrams and graphs and worksheets, a lot of worksheets that I was using to help me get my mind around it, because a novel has hundreds of details, and I needed those helps to keep it straight in my mind, to be consistent throughout. The character development has to happen in a certain way, and the plot needs to have certain points at certain places and so forth. So because of working with Diane, and then I launched the course, and it was way back there in, I think, 2003. And I worked the course, and back then, of course, you know, we didn't have email. I didn't have email. I guess some people might have, but I was mailing lessons in the mail, you know, envelope stamps and checks. My students would mail in their homework. I would correct it and send the next lesson, and they would send me a check, and I would then put their lesson back in the mail. And that's how we did it. And if they had a problem, then we would have to talk on a telephone. Yeah, that's how it was until 2009. In 2009, I went through a divorce, and I was just so traumatized that I shut everything down. I stopped everything I was doing, and I just got a job and sat there and stared at the wall for about 2 years. So that was like a transition point in my life. So my students were getting published before they even finished the course, and I had a hard time getting them to do the last couple lessons, actually, because they were off. You know, I'm off. I got a contract. I'm on a deadline. I got to get this done. That was happening. And the course that I launched back in those days has been going through my mind, you know, like, I need to bring that back. I need to bring, and for the last 5 years or so, I've been thinking about it, bringing that back. But it would take, you know, it took a lot to get it into the modern setting. Now we're doing Zoom calls, and we've got all this digital stuff, and, you know, things have changed. But today in this masterclass, we're going to talk about finding your idea, an idea that is life-changing. And I'm calling it an impact-driven novel, something that's going to change people's lives.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Lana. Like, how much of a person's, like, their personal story is injected into a novel, and is that the way to think about it?
Yes, when you have some major events in your life, you can take the core of that event. Now, I'm not talking about a memoir. I'm talking about fiction. So the characters are not real. They're made up characters. And yet the situations, the lessons, the progression maybe is what you actually experienced. I did this with the book that's coming out in the spring. It's called Shaken But Not Stirred. And it's a story of a stalker. So the fiction characters resemble nothing about the situation. They don't resemble me or the person who was stalking me. But yet, in that situation I had in 2014, I had a stalker, and that person scared the living daylights out of me. I was terrified. And so during that period of time, because I was, you know, fiction writer, even though I was taking a hiatus at that point, I was recording a lot of details. I was writing down those crushing moments, how I felt in my body. A lot of those things I was recording, because I knew at some point I'm going to heal enough that I can write this without getting traumatized. So my story character doesn't know who the stalker is. That's one of the mysteries. There's a murder in the story as well, but one of the main mysteries is, who's the stalker? Who is this person? I knew who my stalker was. It was someone I'd just broken up with. He was completely psycho. So that whole escalation of the way the events happened, the escalation of it, what the police do, what they don't do, what the victim, stalking victim, needs to do to protect themselves, all of this is in the story. Even though the people are not real, the situation is not real, the setting isn't real, but the impetus and the power of my emotion from those days when I was going through it comes into the story. And, you know, it portrays to the reader what this is like. And also, you know, sidebar, teaches them what to do. If you ever have a stalker, you know, this is what's going to happen if you call the police. This is what's going to happen if you don't do something about it. So personally, you know, take action, take control of your life, take charge of your environment and so forth. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about situations that will be relatable from your life to someone else's life. And
you know, it sounds to me like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It sounds to me like you're talking about peak emotional experiences that we go through in life and how those can be like you said, the impetus to create fiction.
yes. And I've got some qualifications for our situation. And so as you're here today and you're thinking through, you know, your situations or maybe some things that have happened to you, we all have them. Everyone has them. There are some things you need to be thinking about. First of all, it needs to be universal. If you say the word diagnosis, everyone knows what that means. It isn't just about overcoming some physical challenge. It's also about your schedule, the money involved, family dynamics and family pain. There's so much involved in that. So the topic needs to be universal. It also needs to be relatable, that other people get it. Even though they may never have had a diagnosis, they still get what that entails. Or the word stalker, you know, people know what that is and how scary it would be. Also, it needs to be just exactly what you said, Randy, high emotional, peak emotional impact, very emotional. And then it also needs to be life-changing. And this is a point that is so important because it needs to be a before and after moment in your life. When you have this happen, you know in your core being, in your inside, life is never going to be the same. When my father left us when I was 13, that was a before and after moment in my life. I knew at that time what it meant to be an abandoned child. And abandonment has been one of my core issues, dynamics, one of the core things in my life. And believe me, I can write a story about abandonment. And so those moments, and I'm so pumped. I'm so thrilled to be able to say that when we go through these hard times and the most devastating, difficult, gut-wrenching times in our lives, I believe we're put there so we could help someone else. And if you have the capability of taking the core elements of that and putting it into a fiction story, you can touch thousands upon thousands of lives with it. The situation, the emotional impact, the hope. Because when you write this, when you're ready to write this, you have a measure of healing. You have come through and you've got something in your heart to share about it. So you're not just traumatizing yourself and traumatizing everybody else. That's not the point. The point is we do come through these things. There is hope on the other side. And that is really where the impact comes. Yes, reader, everyone faces this kind of thing. It's called the human experience. And we don't minimize it at all. We understand there is pain in this life, but at the same time, we also have hope. We have hope, and we can raise each other by talking about these things and sharing the hope that elevated us to realize there is still life out there. There is still good life out there.
You know,
And yes,
you were talking about creating high impact novels, and I'm noticing a trend as I get more and more into the film world as well, like making connections to an entertainment agent who specializes internationally in high impact film. And it's almost like the whole theme of high impact is novel, to use a little pun there. But I mean, it's kind of, it's like it's coming into its own now, and it's trending. That's what I'm seeing from the publishing side of things. Like one of my new connections is a publicist who specializes in social impact projects and things like that, and how writing novels in this genre, I think, is an up and coming trend from
yes,
what I'm seeing in the publishing side of things.
yes, yes. If you think about an example of someone who does this extremely well, Nicholas Sparks. Now, some of his, seems to be kind of random when the person dies because somebody, like a sniper, shot him at the end of the story. I didn't get that part. But there are some of his books are just so deep. And to be honest, that's above me. I can't write about death the way he does. I get too traumatized and overwhelmed by it. So I take my own stories. But here's another part of it. The themes that you pick, the stories that you pick should be personal. All of us want to see the planet healed. We all want to see clean food. We want to see certain things happening in the world at large. But the theme of the story is personal. It comes out of your life experience and your lessons, your growth, and so forth. If you want to make the greater world topics part of the book, that would be external conflict. That would be, fighting against the big, corporation or whatever. That's an external conflict. That's not a theme. The theme is what is in the character's heart, what personal internal struggles they have. Because in a novel, you have the external conflict, me against the world, me against nature, me against the stuff out there. And you also have the internal conflict. How am I going to get through this? How am I going to make it? How am I going to keep my sanity? How am I going to come through intact? That is the internal struggle. And so when you're choosing your before and after moment in your life, then look into your heart. Now that's a courageous thing to do. Look into your heart.
What do you mean by that, Lana?
I mean, when did you have aha moments? When did you realize that something that happened that people would think is very negative, that good came out of it, or that your life expanded because of it? One of my biggest traumas in my life, and I had a lot of them because, my background was so dysfunctional, my family, my divorce. And at the time, I couldn't understand it. Yeah, 30 years of marriage, over in 3 days. I was out. And not only that, I had to figure out how to make a living. I was a stay-at-home mom all those years. And you might think that is a disaster. And it took me a while to come to grips with it. But look at my life. I'm living life on my own terms. My books are getting published. Number 42 is coming out in the spring.
Wow.
I mean, I'm here talking to you and sharing my heart to help people, because in my view of the world, yes, I want to help people with my books, but there are other stories out there that other people can tell that I can't tell, but you can help other people if I teach you how to do this. And so it's just like a ripple effect of amazing, 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 amazing. And so taking that perspective, what good came out of it? That's where the nugget of gold is in the story. And if you can't find it yet, then don't use that story. Go back a little further. I couldn't write about the stalking situation. You know, it happened in 2014. Here we are 8 years later. I think I wrote that in 2021. 7 years went by before I couldn't write about that, but I could write about other things that were further back that I had healed from. And I went through therapy. I went through a lot of different kind of healing modalities. I was working on myself. And in those sessions, I had a journal to write down my healing, write down what I learned, write down my perspectives, because we forget. And it's super important to capture them so that we can pass them along and just drop those nuggets into the story, you know, that we're telling, the fiction that we're telling. One of the questions that I have people ask me a lot is, how do I do this without being cheesy? Okay, cheesy. And I saw this so much when I was first editing for the publishing company Wine Press. They were sending me these books, and I would actually call up the editor at the company and say, this book is good, but it's got a cheesy element to it because this person is just lecturing all the time. And they started to put the author to coach them how to make it better. And so I'm going to tell you how to do this without coming off or, you know, like a know-it-all or something like that. Because the tendency, when you have a strong message, the tendency is to have the characters tell it through dialogue, and they'll have this very fake sounding conversation. Well, Sally, how did you make it through when your son was killed in a car accident? Well, I just did this and that and the other, and you come up with all these pat answers, and that is not the way people talk. That is not the way it happens in life. And so you could, you know, that's one example of this fake kind of dialogue or lecturing through the prose, you know, between the scenes where you have this long stretch of lecturing, preaching kind of text. But the answer to that is you embed it into the character development. So when you do your characters, when you start your characters, you begin with a person with certain characteristics. Like, just because we're talking about stalkers right now, for me, I had a traumatic childhood. I was scared to death of violence because I had been in a home where there was domestic violence. That was my background. Okay, so if I was a character in a book, I would put fear of domestic violence as one of the characteristics of that person. And then going down the path, boom, a stalker or a threat. Well, that brings you right back to the core chaos that's inside, the unhealed bit of them. So now we know, as soon as that event happens, the reader knows, oh no, the character is going to go she's going to go berserk because now she's threatened and she's scared of it. She's got PTSD and she's traumatized. And so you bring the character through the event. And then as the plotting goes forward, the character is looking for solutions for this trauma event. And you're going with them on the journey. Is plan A going to work? Is plan B going to work? Is plan C going to work? And that approach to finding the solutions is also informing the reader. And it's real. The person is experiencing something. And then the conclusion, the resolution, is where they find an answer that works for them. It might not be the answer for everybody in the world, but it works for them. And so following this person's progression through the story, that's the story arc and the character arc are interweaving with each other until you come to this boom moment, like boom. And the character is enriched, wiser, mature, more mature, and so forth, and goes on now to the next phase of their life with a better understanding of how to grapple with these things that happen to us as part of our, I keep saying it, human experience. Everyone goes through it. So that's how you stop. Aren't cheesy. It's a difference between pasting on a message from the outside or having it flow from the heart of the character. And if you get into the heart space with your characters, your readers will adore you. They will not be able to wait for the next book to come out. But it is a very courageous place to go. I don't know if you know this quote, Randy. Maybe you know who said it. I can't remember right now. But someone said, it's easy to be a writer. You just cut your wrists and bleed all over the paper.
I'm listening to a seminar, so.
Yeah. So that's what it takes to not be hokey about it. And there is respect. People will have respect for your ability to go there, right?
I find when I write fiction that I start like living and breathing the characters. I mean, they're so intimate. It's an intimate relationship. And to me, my process in my brain, they start telling me who they are. I don't know how to describe that.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's like they talk to me, and when I'm writing or even when I'm editing as well, you talked about this, you touched upon this, that it has to sound like not stilted, the language, the dialogue. And what I do is like, I mumble. So like, I need to be in a room by myself when I'm editing because I'm listening, even though I'm like, Lana McAra is an award-winning international best-selling author. I want to, I'm just listening, really listening. Does the dialogue sound like people would really speak, or does it sound stilted?
Yes, absolutely. At the beginning, I would have parts of my family read the various characters so I could hear them, because I was really trying to understand how to make the dialogue real. That was one of the feedbacks I was getting. Dialogue's not real. Like, gotta get it. And even today, I read out loud.
Is it more important in fiction to have more dialogue or more description or a balance? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, that brings up another point that I found out recently with a new book coming out, and that is a lot of publishers are putting the manuscripts through artificial intelligence scans because they have a ratio of dialogue to prose now.
Oh, interesting.
And they want less dialogue, which
really?
I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
Wow, yeah. I am too. They want more description.
I guess more action. I don't,
more action. Okay.
Yeah, I came off a little like a diva, I'm afraid. I told them, I've got all these books behind me. I'm not changing my style now. If you don't want it, I'll pull it out and do something else. And they still took it. But I think it's good to do some research on that to find out what the what the ratios are. You can go overboard with dialogue. I'm not saying that. I mean, if you have long pages of dialogue and nobody can keep up with who's talking and, you know, what's going on, that's not good style. But at the same time, the interaction of the characters is really key to moving the story forward, because as the story arc is going forward, these people are bouncing off each other.
Yeah, and what about point of view in a book? Is it, I mean, it used to be like just standard, just keep with one point of view. Is that still so, as far as you know? Yes.
That's pretty strong.
Yeah.
I've read books. I wrote one that had different point of views in each chapter. That's a little more, not quite as often. I think it's, you know, a little more now than it used to be. But there are some writers who do omniscient, where it's more like reporting style and they're telling what everybody's doing. That's very hard to pull off when you are in the impact driven space.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm thinking.
Well, you know, I was reviewing parts of the course that you're offering to actually walk people through the whole thing. And I've never seen anything as comprehensive as your program. I just haven't. Would you, oh my God, I was blown away. I was really blown away by what you're offering and how to help people actually construct the story from beginning to end. And maybe you'd just like to jump in and, you know, share a little bit about that.
Well, thank you so much. I that just touched my heart, because, you know, I know you have been in the book world, you know, forever, and
Yeah.
so much stuff, you know, that really touches my heart. So I'm offering a course. I'm bringing back my course, basically. It used to be 12 modules. I've condensed it into 8 modules, which means they're bigger. I didn't leave a thing out. And so the link for that is how to write a
Yeah, I could just put that in. I just put it in the chat.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to pull up, if I can, I'm going to try to figure out how to do this. I'm going to pull up the sales page. Can you see that, Randy? Can you see that?
Yes. Here we go.
Okay.
Yes.
So I wanted to look at the modules. This is the page. We're not going to go through all this right now, but I wanted to look at the modules. Module A, a solid start to a seamless finish. That's about what we're talking about now, finding a strong theme. So important. And it's also about more helps. I have something that I call your idea journal. We're going to talk about in here, and we're going to talk about a lot of different things of getting yourself started. Hopefully you've already downloaded the novel notebook, because that we're going to be using. And then structure, we're going to be going over structure and what that means, because your story structure is the framework. And one of the things I want to really emphasize is that these tools do not limit your creativity. They simply make it, number one, easier and faster for you to write the story. And number two, better for the reader to understand the story. So your creativity happens all through this. It's not in any way restricting it or becoming formulaic, nothing like that. It's actually unleashing your creativity, because you can get focus from this. Character, the heart of the story, all the different kinds of characters, we're going to go through them. And I want to say too, that this is a live Zoom session, just like we're having now. You're going to get notes, and I'm going to teach the notes in the class. Like I said, I'm an English teacher. We're going to go through this just like a college course together. You're going to be able to ask questions, and I'm going to be with you through that entire process, because I want you to learn this. I want you to succeed. And then module 4, character development, there is a very definite way to do this. I have a way to outline the character's development from chapter 1 to chapter 20, 30, however far you go, so that in every chapter, you know what this person needs to learn or experience in order to get to these different points on time. Setting is important for creating mood, adding to the character interaction, letting you see who they are. A lot with setting could, you know, be beneficial. There's a whole module about setting, because it's important to go big, know the state they're in, know the town they're in, and go small. What does their bedroom look like? All of these things are part of it. And then plots. There is plot structure. There are elements in plots that are so vital. And I feel like the plot part of this, module 6, is really where I think characters first, plot is second to getting your book published. Because people in the industry, they know about this stuff. It's those of us that are sitting at the keyboard who aren't clear on it a lot of times. So also gripping beginnings, memorable endings. This is where we ramp up your writing style and really get it punchy. And then polishing, module 8, polishing. How do you polish your book to become at professional level so you'll stand out from all the rest? And so that's it. We're going to start on February the 5th, I think, the 4th or the 5th, Sunday afternoon. I figured was a time when most people could be with us live. They're all going to be recorded. Now, I know, I'm fully aware you can't write a book in 8 weeks. I know that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to inundate you with tools. I'm giving away all my worksheets, all my charts, all of it. Everything I use in my own work is going to be in this course. And so when you are in the course, we'll be learning, and then you're going to have the recording, you're going to have the helps, and we're going to have a Facebook group so that when you actually do get into the writing process, you'll have some place to go to get answers to your questions. So that's, you know, like kind of an intensive 8 weeks for the students as well as for me, the teacher. It's quite a time investment for me to do this, but it's in my heart, and I know it's my calling. This is what I want to do. So that's, you know, that's the course, and you can go in there on your own time and look at it. This first time through, I have a 50% off window that's going to be going until the 20th of this month, January. So I want some people in this class. I want to launch this with good energy, and just like, you know, we feel the energy of each other during the sessions and talking and the question and answer time and all that. Just so dynamic and so wonderful. And I want to get some people in there. Let's do this. And I can't wait. I had a blast with this before, but I didn't have the capability of having a classroom before. I was working with people on the phone and on paper.
Back in the day, that's right.
Yeah.
You had mentioned, Lana, that you were going to do something to choose, somehow pick a person at random who stayed through the call,
Yeah. So what
to have a conversation with.
I'm going to, thank you for remembering that, by the way, because I was get in my head here. I'm going to go into the registrations right now. That's what I'm doing. And Randy, I want you to pick a number, and I'm going to look at the registrations that are under your.
And I'll just share with you, a couple of people private messaged me saying they had other meetings and wanted the recording, and we're thankful. So, but this applies, I think, to the people who are actually here.
Yes, the people who are here.
So there's let's see, there's 6 people. So do you want like a number between 1 and 6? I'm not exactly sure how to.
Yeah, go ahead. Any number up to 22, 25, I think.
Okay, is there an 18?
Okay, let me bear with me, people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Okay, I know that person isn't here. Is Shirley here?
No. Oh, actually, I don't know. I don't see a person.
Is Julie here?
No. At least not that I see. I only see 3 people on my screen, although it says, oh yeah, it says, yeah, there's only 3 people here.
Oh, people are leaving?
Yeah, people that have other calls. I've had a number of people saying they're just direct messaging me.
Okay, I'm looking at names right now. and I will find one close to where you said. Just wanted to see who's here.
Vinota, Karen, and Anne. That's who's here.
Okay. Anne.
Anne's picture is here.
Anne here? Anne Crawford, are you here? Maybe not.
No, so
Okay, back to the board. Wow, this is more difficult than I thought. Okay. Okay, Karen. Karen's coming up. Karen here?
yes, Karen Barbanel. I hope I
Okay.
didn't butcher your name, but yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome, awesome, Karen. If you would send me, let me put it in the chat room here. I have a calendar link.
And maybe after that, we can just take a few questions.
Sure.
Vinota, Karen, if you have some specific.
I'm here. I just couldn't, I couldn't get there.
Oh, you've been here, Anne, the whole
I've
time?
been here the whole time.
Oh,
Okay,
I
well,
can't, let's,
I'm going to give both of you a call.
oh,
okay. You can go ahead with Karen. I just couldn't do it.
Put my calendar link in the chat, so you can just go in there and find a time, and we'll talk about your project or any questions that you might have about anything that we said today or the course or anything else. And
Okay.
I'll record it, and I will record it and give you the recording.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So Vinota, Karen, Anne, do you have any questions you'd like to ask now?
Actually, I have a question. I'm working on a middle grade fantasy series about a little 12-year-old tree whisperer who becomes a page to a knight. And I'm just wondering whether, this course, would be sort of helpful to me in the children's novel space. It's 9 to 12, middle grade. That has its own genre, its own conventions, and I'm just wondering whether, what I would learn here would be helpful. It certainly sounds fascinating, but so
Yes,
that's my question.
you're correct that there are some other parameters to think of because you're dealing with young people.
Yeah.
However, the character development,
Mhm.
plot development, setting development, all of those things would still absolutely apply.
Yeah,
As a matter
yeah.
of fact, it's harder to write for children than it is for adults because they have attention spans, and also they want to cut to the chase. You can't add a lot of fluff for them. They're not going to sit still. So
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, so I do have some questions, so I can call you. I'll get on your calendar, and thank you very much. I really
Oh, you're
appreciate
so
that.
welcome.
I've really enjoyed this and learned a lot, so thank you.
Vinota, is there something you might like to ask?
Oh,
You need to unmute.
it muted itself back. Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Yes.
There we go.
Could you tell me how important character development or character itself is in a crime novel, please?
Oh, yes, because I write mysteries. That's what I do. It is very important to be distinctive, give each person certain flaws, certain gifts and abilities, so that are you talking about true crime or fiction crime?
True crime, please.
Oh,
True crime.
Yes, yes, yes. So the motivations for these people is very distinctive. Each person has got specific things that they have acted upon, reasons for what they did, and their backgrounds are going to be very important as well. So if you're writing true crime, one of the issues I have with writing true, because my book Reaping the Whirlwind was about a true setting with a few true characters. It's more difficult because you want to be accurate. And so researching the people involved, the perpetrators, the victims, the lawyers, the law enforcement, there's a whole lot of different motivations and agendas and personalities and so forth. But at the same time, you want a story that people want to read. So you're not just giving a book report, you know, that's kind of a flat account. You want to develop these people so that they feel full-bodied, but people know them. People have an understanding of them. Truman Capote was a master at it. And even though he may not have personally known the people, you felt like you knew them. He had a way of bringing their characteristics out. And so one of the ways to do this with real people is to select very distinctive description points. The details very carefully selected. So one example that I like to use is if you make the statement, I turned and my coattail knocked over a China shepherdess on the hutch. That gives you an entire description of the room. First of all, somebody older lives there. They probably have a lot of pretty little things. And it could be cluttered.
Could you say that line again, please? That was wonderful.
As I turned, my coattail knocked over a China shepherdess on the hutch.
That's great. Thank you.
So
would it be that, sorry, Jim.
No, go ahead.
No, so the emphasis is more on description and situation.
No, that was just an example of description. But you need to develop your characters as well. You need to have strong character, revealing the characters. If you have a character that comes out of a bar and there is a puppy on the side of the step that looks cold and hungry, the way the character interacts with that puppy is going to tell you a lot about them. Do they get down and they put it on their, in their coat? Do they walk on and never notice? Do they knock it off the shelf and get out of my way? There's a whole spectrum of things. Do they take it into the bar and say, does anybody own this puppy? So if you can find some instances, create some situations for that character to show you and the reader who they are. And in true crime, I don't know how much leeway you have there to add stuff, but in your research, you could pick a few details. In one of my books, in the Reaping the Whirlwind, the main character, William Jennings Bryan, was one of the lawyers in the case. And he was a salesman. He had just bought a bunch of property in Florida and he was now in Tennessee. And the whole time he was in town, he was handing out flyers trying to sell his real estate. Well, that tells you something about him, right? I mean, he was there because he had an agenda. He wanted to do certain things, but at the dinner table, he's pulling out a flyer. On the side of a sidewalk, he's pulling out a flyer. I mean, there was a true man And I found that detail in the description of him in my research. So I said,
Yes.
okay.
Okay. If I want to emphasize more on the person, on the detective, please.
Mhm.
You know, more than on the criminal. You see how the detective goes about, and how much of personal, what can I say, his own person he puts into it. You know, the makeup of the person, his determination, and you know, I want to bring about maybe how he takes every type of help to solve a problem,
Mhm.
including the spiritual help.
Yes.
His way of trying to see meaning into, I mean, you know, like the policeman acts as a guardian, you know, of society, and he's got something wrong before him. He's trying his best to get out that this one, and I'm not, you know, I'm sorry, I wasn't ready with this question, but this is what I want to do. I want to bring out the character of the policeman who acts as a detective, or anybody who acts as the detective, private or police. So in this one, I'd like to, how important is it to show the mental makeup? It is important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Of the detective, his past, how his mind has grown towards a certain determination or willpower to correct the ills of society, and to arrive at the truth. That is the most important thing. You see, he's not going to patch up things. He's going to get to the truth. And in that, he passes through so much of social strata, moral strata.
Yeah.
I want to bring in the whole complex situation of that the detective faces. You see, I'm working on this novel. Yeah, and I'll bring in crime story because crime is interesting. That's what is selling nowadays. So I'll bring in crime stories and tell it from the perspective of the detective. Is that
So
okay?
the detective is a real person?
Yes. So yeah.
Okay, so in that case, you would want to do a lot of research on that person
Yeah.
and get as much as you possibly can, video and accounts of people who knew him or know him.
Is my husband. My husband is a retired policeman.
Okay,
He
well,
used to be.
you've got
That's
that's awesome.
Yeah.
You've got the
I
goods
want
right
to bring record all this, all the crime he detected, and
there.
they're
Yeah,
all very interesting. Yeah, very
yeah,
interesting.
that's
And
excellent.
and how many times it's he had to work on. I mean, the policemen themselves. You see, they are the wrongdoers, and the a mental tussle he goes through. So many aspects of a policeman's work as a detective. You see, so then I thought the mental makeup and the background and his that is more important. So I don't want to I don't want to show much about the criminals. You see, that's not. Though I
Right.
could, but this is going to be my focus. Would that be okay?
It's okay as long as you're able to portray the crime in a cozy mystery, which is what I write.
Yes, yes.
In a
Yeah.
cozy mystery, you don't show someone getting murdered. You come in, the body's on the floor. You
Yes,
don't
yeah.
see the violence. And so you can do that same kind of.
Yes, that's how I'm going to do it. I don't know. Would you be editing also? Could I use? I mean, could I show my novel as it progresses?
Check with Randy. And that's
With
part of
Randy.
what
Okay,
we do.
Randy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do all of that. I do consulting, I do editing.
Especially one, I'm going to bring in a lot of the supernatural element. You see, I'm going to show how it's true. That is also true. You know, your mind can cross barriers of physical experiences and how it really worked. It's a true story. It's going to be, it's very difficult to put it across, but it was true.
I do understand. Yes, I'm in that world too. So.
You know, we're at the top of the hour now. Allison, there's a recording, and so there'll be recording of the entire thing. And I'm just going to put the link in again about the course, how to write a novel that sells.com. And I'm telling you, it's the most comprehensive course I've seen in my 20 years of pitching books to the top literary agents and publishers. So I highly encourage people to take this course and really learn how to do it, because you're going to have a complete roadmap. You know, you're not going to be left hanging.
What is going to be the cost of the course?
If you go over there, it's on the sales page. It's 50% off right now until the 20th of January. So just click the link and go over. You'll see all the details about the cost and how to pay and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, so I want to thank everyone for being on this call. After you've taken the course, completed your novel, please do be in touch with me, because guess what? I pitch to top literary agents and publishers. And as I said at the beginning of this call, I sold some fiction, a novel just a few months ago in late November that Lana worked on for the client, and I sold it in 3 days to a publisher. Fiction, novel. So I can open doors for you that you most likely cannot open for yourselves, to really great agents and publishers, traditional publishers and agents. So, you know, take the course. That's what I can say. It's great.
But Randy, if there's someone who I could take the course along with my novel. I don't know how you could structure that, because it's going to take a lot of time if I do the course and then my story.
You know, every book has its own sense of timing. That's what I've discovered. You may think you know what the timing is for your book, but your book will always have its way with you. I'm just telling you, it's just been my experience, you know. When I wrote my first book many years ago, same thing. I was like, oh yeah, this is perfect. Then I got some feedback, professional feedback. Again, this is going over 20 years ago. And it's like, oh my God, they're right. Rewrite. Books they have their own sense of timing. They just do.
Mm-hmm.
Don't rush it. Enjoy it.
Very important to sharpen your axe.
That's right.
Before you start to chop down the tree.
Just got to say, I'm really sorry for coming in late, guys. I got confused with the time because I'm in the UK. I'm really sorry about it.
Yes,
the recording will be available. It'll be available. You won't miss anything.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.